Hi, I'm Sarah. Today, I'm going to read you the story of Kimberly, which is titled like this. Mom sent me a gift list for their 40th anniversary, a $15,000 trip, a new car, and diamond earrings. I asked her to pick just one thing. You're being silly. We want all three, she said. So, I can let dinner, stopped payments. Well, let's go. My name is Kimberly. I'm 38, and I own a pretty successful antique business. It wasn't always this way, though. I started the business years ago with my ex-husband, but we got divorced 3 years ago and had to split everything 50-50ths. That could have been the end of it, but instead of letting the divorce destroy what we'd built, I threw myself into growing my half of the business. Those 3 years after the divorce were tough, but they were also the best thing that ever happened to my career. I expanded into online sales, started going to estate sales across 3 states, and built up a client base of serious collectors. Now, I was making more money than I'd ever dreamed of when we first started the business. The thing is, success comes with expectations. My family, my elderly parents, my younger brother Jake, who's 35, and my sister Emma, who's 32, had all gotten used to me being the family ATM over the years. Every month, I paid my parents' mortgage. It wasn't cheap either. Their house payment was $2,800 a month. I also covered their medical bills, which seemed to pile up constantly as they got older. My dad had diabetes. My mom had arthritis. And neither of them had great insurance. Then there was Jake. He bought this fancy truck a couple years ago that he definitely couldn't afford. So, guess who ended up making his monthly payments? That was another $650 a month coming out of my account. And Emma, she lived in this cute apartment downtown that cost $1,900 a month in rent. She worked at some marketing firm, but apparently didn't make enough to cover her own housing. So I paid that too. All told, I was spending over $5,000 a month just keeping my family afloat. But I figured that's what family does for each other, right? I had the money. They needed help, so it made sense. I was at my antique shop one Tuesday afternoon going through some paperwork in my office when my computer chimed with a new email. It was from my mom with the subject line, "An anniversary gift ideas." I opened it, expecting maybe some suggestions for a nice dinner or flowers. Instead, I found myself staring at what looked like a shopping list from hell. The email was divided into 2 sections. At the top was a list of modest gifts with a note in parentheses saying, "For Jake and Emma to buy." These included things like a kitchen service set, a coffee maker, a microwave, some throw pillows, normal anniversary gift stuff, probably totaling a few hundred. But then there was the second section, special gifts with my name in parentheses. This list had exactly 3 items. A trip to the Maldives for two, $15,000, a new car, and diamond earrings. I read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't seeing things wrong. My parents wanted me to buy them a $15,000 vacation or a car or diamond earrings for their 40th anniversary, while my siblings got to chip in for a coffee maker. My head started pounding. I felt dizzy and a little nauseous. I told my assistant manager I was leaving early and drove home in a fog. At home, I made myself some mint tea and tried to calm down before calling my mom. Maybe I was misunderstanding something. Maybe it was a joke. "Hi, Mom. Kimberly." "Oh, good. Did you get my email? Are you excited about the anniversary?" "Yeah, about that email. I wanted to talk to you about the gift list." "Oh, wonderful. I was hoping you'd call. Your dad and I are so excited about everything." "Mom, I can't buy gifts that expensive. A trip to the Maldives, a new car. That's like thousands of dollars." Her voice immediately got sharp. "Kimberly, you have a very successful business. You're doing so well for yourself. These gifts wouldn't even make a dent in what you make." I took a deep breath. "Okay, I want to do something nice for you and Dad. Pick one thing from that list. I'll buy it for you." Then she laughed. Not a happy laugh, a mean, condescending laugh. "Oh, honey, you're being silly. Those aren't options to choose from. We want all three." I couldn't speak for a few seconds. "All three. Mom, did I hear you right? You want the trip and the car and the earrings?" "Of course. Your father and I discussed it with Jake and Emma, and we all agreed that's what would be appropriate." "Appropriate?" Mom, we're talking about probably $50,000 or more. Kimberly, UOS. We gave you life. We raised you. We supported you. Now it's your turn to take care of us properly. Mom, I've been working since I was 16. I put myself through college on scholarships. I built my business from nothing with my ex-husband. You didn't pay for any of that. Don't you dare talk to me like that. You're arrogant, selfish, and greedy. After everything we've done for you. Mom, I already help you every month. I pay your mortgage, your medical bills. That's the least you can do. And if you don't give us what we want for our anniversary, then don't bother showing up to the party. You're not invited. The line went dead. I sat there holding my phone, staring at it like it might explain what just happened. An hour later, my phone started buzzing with texts. Jake, Kim, what's wrong with you? Just buy them the stuff. Emma, seriously, you're going to be selfish about Mom and Dad's anniversary. Jake, you make so much money. Why are you being cheap about this? Emma, they raised us. The least you can do is make their 40th special. I set my phone down and opened my laptop. A week ago, I'd agreed to pay for their anniversary dinner at this fancy restaurant downtown. I'd already put down a $3,000 deposit for 30 people. The party was supposed to happen in 3 weeks, but after tonight, after being called greedy and selfish and ungrateful, I was done. I called the restaurant. Hi, I need to cancel a reservation for the Morrison party. Of course, ma'am, there will be a 30% administrative fee for the cancellation. Next, I opened my banking app. All those automatic payments I'd been making for years. Time to stop them. Click, Mom and Dad's mortgage payment canceled. Click, Jake's truck payment canceled. Click, Emma's rent canceled. I took screenshots of every cancellation and sent them to the family group chat with one message. Since I'm so selfish and greedy, I figured you wouldn't want my money anymore. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. I woke up the next morning and immediately reached for my phone. The screen was completely flooded with notifications, missed calls, text messages, voicemails. I had dozens of messages from my parents and siblings. Mom, Kimberly, what have you done? Call me immediately. Dad, this is outrageous. You can't just abandon your family like this. Jake, are you insane? I have a truck payment due tomorrow. Emma, Kim, I'm going to get evicted. You can't just stop paying my rent. Jake, this is so messed up. We're your family. Emma, Mom is crying. Dad is having chest pains. Are you happy now? The messages kept going, getting more and more frantic as the night went on. But I didn't feel bad about it. If anything, I felt relieved. For the first time in years, I wasn't worried about everyone else's bills. I made myself coffee and got ready for work like it was any normal day. But around 10 o'clock in the morning, I heard loud knocking on my front door. Kimberly, open up. We need to talk. It was my mom's voice. I looked out the window and saw all of them, Mom, Dad, Jake, and Emma standing on my porch looking upset and desperate. I don't want to talk to you, I called through the door. Please, honey, Dad said. We can work this out. There's nothing to work out. You made it clear how you feel about me. Emma started yelling. Kim, I can't pay my rent. The landlord is going to kick me out. Then maybe you should get a better job, I replied. Jake joined in. My truck payment is due. I'll lose my truck. Should have thought about that before calling me selfish and greedy. Mom started crying loudly. Kimberly, we're your parents. You can't just cut us off like this. Watch me. I went upstairs, turned on some music, and tried to focus on work emails. They kept knocking and pleading for about an hour before they finally gave up and left. The next few days were quiet. I went to work, dealt with customers, organized inventory. It felt strange not having to worry about whether my family needed money for this or that emergency. Strange, but good. Then on Friday, I was in my office at the antique shop when my assistant knocked on the door. Kimberly, your parents are here. They want to speak with you. I sighed. I didn't want them making a scene in front of customers, so I told her to send them back to my office. Mom and Dad walked in looking tired and defeated. Mom's eyes were red like she'd been crying. Can we sit down? Dad asked. I gestured to the chairs across from my desk. Make it quick. I have work to do. Mom immediately started tearing up again. Kimberly, we were wrong to ask for all those expensive gifts. We talked it over, and we decided we'd be happy with just one thing. Either the trip to the Malda or a new car or the diamond earrings. Just pick one. I stared at them for a moment, then started laughing. I couldn't help it. The whole situation was so ridiculous that I laughed until tears came to my eyes. They looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "What's so funny?" Dad asked. I wiped my eyes and tried to catch my breath. "You still don't get it, do you? I'm not buying you anything. Not a trip, not a car, not earrings. Nothing." Mom clutched her chest dramatically. "You're breaking my heart, Kimberly." "Mom, I paid your medical bills for years. I know there's nothing wrong with your heart, but we're your parents, and I've been supporting you for years while you took it completely for granted. I'm done with that." "What about the anniversary dinner?" Dad asked. "I canceled the restaurant reservation. You can figure out your own party." Mom gasped. "You canceled it? But we invited 30 people. Then you better start planning something you can actually afford." "Kimberly, please." "No, I want you both to leave my office now. And don't come back here bothering me at work." They left, but I could hear Mom crying in the hallway. Over the next week and a half, my phone rang constantly. Every relative we had was calling me, trying to guilt me into changing my mind. "Kimberly, your Aunt Sarah says you're being cruel to your elderly parents." "Kimberly, your cousin Mike thinks you should reconsider. They raised you. Your parents are so hurt. You have all this money from your antique business." I hung up on every single one of them. I wasn't interested in hearing their opinions about my money or my decisions. 2 weeks later, the day of my parents' 40th anniversary came and went. I didn't hear anything from them that day, which was fine by me. But the next day, I was curious enough to check social media. I went to Emma's Facebook page and found photos from the anniversary celebration. It was nothing like what they'd originally planned. The photos showed a small gathering of maybe 10 people in my parents' living room. There were homemade dishes on paper plates, a grocery store sheet cake, and cheap decorations from the dollar store. Emma had captioned the photos, "A simple celebration for Mom and Dad's 40th anniversary." Sometimes you have to make do when ungrateful people forget what family means. I laughed out loud at that last part. Ungrateful people, right? But honestly, looking at the photos, everyone seemed happy enough. My parents were smiling. The relatives who came looked like they were having a good time, and the food looked decent, even if it wasn't from a fancy restaurant. Maybe this was how their anniversary should have been all along. A family gathering that they planned and paid for themselves instead of expecting me to foot the bill for their extravagant dreams. 2 months passed after the anniversary, and it was honestly the most peaceful 2 months I'd had in years. Without constantly worrying about my family's bills, I could focus entirely on my business. I closed 3 major deals, including selling a complete Victorian dining room set to a collector in California for $18,000. The extra money I wasn't sending to my family every month was adding up fast. Over $5,000 a month that I could now invest back into my business or save for myself. It felt incredible. I was coming home from work on a Thursday evening when I saw my parents' old Honda parked outside my gate. They were both sitting in the car waiting for me. As soon as I pulled into my driveway, they got out and walked over. "Kimberly, we need to talk," Dad said. He looked older than I remembered, more tired. "What do you want?" Mom stepped forward. "We have big problems. We can't make the mortgage payments anymore. The bank sent us a letter saying they're going to foreclose on the house." They both looked genuinely distressed, but I wasn't buying it. "That's interesting," I said, getting out of my car. "Because for the past several years that I was paying your mortgage, I know you were saving the money you would have been spending on house payments." Dad shook his head. "We didn't save that much." "Really?" "Because $2,800 a month for 3 years is over $100,000. Where did all that money go?" They looked at each other uncomfortably. "We had expenses," Mom said vaguely. "What expenses?" "I was paying your medical bills, too." "Kimberly, please," Dad said. "We're going to lose our house." I crossed my arms. "You know what? Even if you spent every penny I was sending you, you still have options. Remember that little country house I bought you 6 years ago?" Their faces changed immediately. "What about it?" Mom asked suspiciously. "Sell it. That house is worth at least $80,000 now." That should be more than enough to catch up on your mortgage payments. We're not selling the country house, Dad said quickly. Then I guess you're going to lose the main house. Kimberly, that's our retirement home. We've been planning to move there when we get older. Well, you might be moving there sooner than you thought if you lose this house. Mom started getting upset again. You can't just let us become homeless. I'm not letting you do anything. You're making choices. You can keep the country house and lose this one, or sell the country house and keep this one. But I'm not paying your bills anymore. But we're your parents. And I helped you for years while you took it for granted and called me selfish. We're done here. I walked to my front door, went inside, and locked it behind me. They stood outside for a few more minutes, but eventually I heard their car start and drive away. Over the next few weeks, I heard through the family grapevine what was happening with everyone. My cousin Lisa, who never could keep her mouth shut, called to update me, even though I hadn't asked. Emma had to get a second job. She told me she's working at a coffee shop on weekends to help cover her rent. Good for her. And Jake is pulling double shifts at the warehouse. He's exhausted, but he's determined to keep his truck. That's what responsible adults do. Your parents are talking about putting the country house on the market. Smart move. Lisa sounded frustrated that I wasn't more concerned. Kimberly, don't you feel bad about any of this? No, I don't. They're all doing what they should have been doing all along, taking care of themselves. After Lisa hung up, I thought about what she'd told me. Emma was working 2 jobs. Jake was working overtime. My parents were finally going to sell the country house I bought them and use that money responsibly. None of them were starving. None of them were homeless. They were just having to actually work for their money instead of depending on me to hand it to them every month. The truth was, I'd been enabling them for years. Every time I paid one of their bills, I was sending the message that they didn't need to be responsible for their own lives. I was teaching them that there would always be someone to bail them out. But now they were learning what most adults already know. You have to work for what you have. You have to make tough choices about what you can afford. You have to prioritize your spending and live within your means. Emma was probably learning valuable skills at that coffee shop. Jake was showing real determination to keep something he'd worked for. My parents were finally going to downsize to something they could actually afford instead of living beyond their means. In a weird way, cutting them off was probably the best thing I could have done for them. My business was thriving without the constant drain of their financial needs. I'd been able to hire a part-time assistant, expand my online presence, and even start looking into opening a second location. The antique business was seasonal, and fall was always busy with people redecorating for the holidays. I had estate sales to attend, inventory to price, and customers to serve. It felt good to put all my energy into something that was mine. One afternoon, I was arranging a display of vintage Christmas ornaments when my phone rang. It was Jake. Kim, I wanted to talk to you. I know things have been messed up between us, but I want you to know I don't blame you for cutting us off. That surprised me. You don't. No, I mean, it sucked at first, but you were right. I was being lazy, expecting you to take care of my truck payment while I spent my own money on other stuff. How are you managing now? It's hard, but I'm doing it. I picked up a weekend job doing deliveries, and I'm actually making more money than before. I just had to stop treating your help like it would last forever. I'm glad you figured it out. Kim, I'm sorry for calling you selfish. You weren't selfish. You were the opposite. You helped us way more than you should have. After he hung up, I felt something I hadn't expected. Pride. Not just in myself for setting boundaries, but in Jake for stepping up and taking responsibility. Maybe this whole mess was going to work out better than I'd hoped. Maybe my family was finally going to learn to stand on their own feet. And maybe I could focus on building the life I wanted without constantly worrying about everyone else's problems. Jake's phone call was the first real conversation I'd had with any family member since the whole anniversary disaster. It gave me hope that maybe not everyone was going to hold a grudge forever. A few weeks later, I heard through Lisa that my parents had indeed sold the country house. They got $85,000 for it, which was more than enough to catch up on their mortgage and have some left over. They were no longer in danger of losing their main house. Emma was still working her 2 jobs, but apparently she was doing well with it. Lisa mentioned that Emma had even gotten a promotion at her main job and was making more money now than when I was paying her rent. As fall turned into winter, my business hit its holiday rush. December was always my busiest month with people looking for unique vintage pieces for gifts or wanting to redecorate for Christmas parties. I was working long days, but loving every minute of it. I'd also started seriously looking into that second location. There was a perfect storefront available in the historic district downtown. And with all the money I'd been saving by not supporting my family, I actually had enough for a substantial down payment. One evening in mid-December, I was at the shop late doing inventory when I heard someone knock on the front door. We were closed, but I could see through the window that it was Emma. I unlocked the door and let her in. "Hi, Kim. I hope it's okay that I stopped by." "Sure. What's up?" She looked around the shop, taking in all the holiday decorations and new inventory I'd added. "I wanted to talk to you about something, about everything that happened." I gestured for her to sit down in one of the vintage chairs I had for sale. "I know we all treated you terribly," she began. "The anniversary thing was insane. Mom and Dad asking for all those expensive gifts and then Jake and I backing them up and calling you selfish. Yeah, it was pretty bad. I've been thinking about it a lot, especially since I started working 2 jobs. I don't know how much money you were spending on us every month. Over $5,000. Her eyes widened. "Jesus, Kim, I never thought about it like that. I just knew you paid my rent, but when you add it all up with everyone else, you could have bought yourself a house with that money or taken vacations or saved for retirement." I nodded. "That's exactly right. I'm embarrassed that it took lowing your help for me to realize how much I was taking advantage of you, Emma. I'm glad you figured it out. But you did figure it out. You're supporting yourself now. It's actually kind of nice," she admitted. "I mean, it's harder work, but I feel more independent, more grown up, I guess." "How are Mom and Dad doing?" "They're okay. They sold the country house like you suggested. Dad was grumpy about it at first, but Mom pointed out that it was better than losing the main house entirely. And they're managing the mortgage payments now." "Yeah, Dad picked up some part-time work doing consulting for his old company. Mom is doing some bookkeeping for a few small businesses. They're actually making it work." We talked for another hour. Emma told me about her promotion at work, her new apartment that she could actually afford on her own, and how she'd been learning to budget and save money. When she was getting ready to leave, she turned back to me. "Kim, I know we messed up our relationship pretty badly. I don't expect you to just forgive and forget everything, but I hope someday we can be sisters again. Real sisters, not just you supporting me financially." "I'd like that, too." After she left, I sat in my shop surrounded by beautiful antiques and felt more content than I had in years. My family was finally learning to be responsible for themselves. My business was thriving and I was free to live my own life without constantly worrying about everyone else's problems. The next week, I signed the lease on the second store location. I was officially expanding my business, something I'd been dreaming about for years, but never had the extra capital to make happen. As I was leaving the lawyer's office after signing all the paperwork, my phone rang. It was Jake. "Kim, I heard from Emma that you're opening a second store." "That's awesome. Thanks. I'm pretty excited about it. I wanted to ask you something. Are you hiring?" "I've been thinking about making a career change, and I've always been interested in antiques." That surprised me. "You want to work for me? If you'd have me." I know I screwed up before, but I've learned a lot about responsibility over the past few months. And I promise I wouldn't expect any special treatment just because we're family. I thought about it. Jake had always been good with his hands and had an eye for quality. He might actually be good at restoration work. Let me think about it. I'll need someone to help with furniture restoration at the new location. I'd love that. And Kim, I'd work for whatever you think is fair. No family discounts or special deals. Just treat me like any other employee." After I hung up, I realized something important had happened. My family was finally approaching me as equals instead of as their personal bank account. I didn't know if I was ready to work with Jake yet, or if my relationship with my parents would ever fully recover. But for the first time in months, I felt like there might be a possibility for real healthy relationships with them someday. The best part was that whatever happened, I knew I could handle it. I'd proven to myself that I could set boundaries, stick to them, and build the life I wanted without constantly sacrificing my own goals for other people's comfort. My phone buzzed with a text from a potential customer asking about a Victorian armoire they'd seen on my website. I smiled and headed back to work, ready to focus on what I did best, finding beautiful things and sharing them with people who truly appreciated them. This Christmas was going to be different, better, and it was going to be entirely mine.